From the Grave I Crawl by Epic Insanity 666, Chapter 8. Seeing Naruto fly into the tree line as she was about to sever the web, Raven Brunwood looked to the grim abomination with those present. Raven looked to Summer as she skidded away from a backhand, narrowing her eyes in anger at the beast. It let out a shriek as the one known as Jason of the current group punched its right human kneecap, forcing it to one knee. Crow ran up its back while severing the 3 spider legs. He went to end it with a decapitation strike, if not for its human arm to backhand him away and grab Jason in anger, opening its jaw to bite his head off. One of its eyes was shot by a bullet that forced it to release him, while Lucien rushed at it on all fours with an axe in hand as he leaped into the air with the axe cutting into its injured shoulder, making the grim roar and slam both hands into the ground with Lucien swinging onto its back. He stood behind it, its head delivering the hard punches as it lost balance from the surprisingly heavy strikes. Grabbing Lucien with its uninjured arm, it held him in front of its mouth before it hissed at being shot by Crow and Taiyang. Throwing the Faunus away, the Grim focused on the new two, looking after the two in an attempt to catch up to them. The beast hissed loudly before spitting out web for the two. Crow looked up too late to avoid the web trap. He was forced to trip with Taiyang with the two groaning. Looking up, the creature went to approach until Raven and Jason went on the assault, with Summer attempting to free them. Using one of her cutlass, they heard a roar echoing from the forest, with the two trapped boys gulping at thinking of anything before a Goliath elder rushed out with a familiar blonde riding shotgun and an AK in hand. The Goliath charged at the creature with Jason and Raven scattered as the Goliath forced its back. "Round 2, ya bitch!" Naruto yelled as he fired his weapon, making the mutant grim hiss in pain as it was thrown into the tower, crumbling into further ruin as Naruto swung onto the Goliath's tusk with a grenade launcher in hand. Charge again, giant friend! Naruto cheered, with the Goliath letting out a triumphant roar before charging at the recovering creature. It looked up in time to be hit by a grenade. Forcing it back, Naruto leaped upwards as the two Grim collided, using a chakra chain to pull him back to his current ally. Naruto saw the beast open its bottom jaw to spit out webbing. He fired a grenade at the mouth, with black saliva flying everywhere as the Goliath slammed into it once more, with one tusk impaling the creature. Naruto fired his grenade launcher once more. He held it by the shoulder guard like a bat. Leaping into the air with a battle cry, he landed on its shoulders before bashing its head in, making the grim roar as it was pinned to a cliff face. But the Goliath, seeing this, Raven and Jason went to help until the creature sprouted more spider legs that stabbed into the Goliath, forcing the Goliath back as it groaned in pain. Naruto saw this and brought a knife out, looking at the creature's eyes. He stabbed a good few of them, with the creature writhing in pain, with the spider legs flailing with the Goliath free. Letting out a look of fury, the Goliath charged into the creature, with Raven leaping onto its back. She leaped into the air with her weapon poised. Seeing this, the creature, in a valiant show of defiance, swung one of its spider legs that sent her flying, if not for a chakra chain shooting and wrapping around her. Raven looked back to see Naruto holding his own katana, with a hand guiding the chakra chains. Throwing his guiding hand back towards the creature, he rushed forward, with Raven flying at it once more, aiming her sword. She was joined by Naruto, impaling its head beside her, making the creature let out a dying hiss, with Naruto smiling as he looked to Raven, who let out an exhale until he petted her back, making her look at him. Her eyes stared into his cerulean blue. She looked forward, with her cheeks darkening before they lost their balance as the Goliath freed itself from the wall as the creature fell down unmoving. Looking back to the Goliath, the two stared at the Grim as its tusks moved to Naruto's head, petting him like a child. It then left with a limp, leaving the future huntsman. Lucien cheered before falling to his back, with Vlad holstering his sniper. Turning to the others, Naruto chuckled as Raven stood with him. She turned back to the creature to flinch as it leaned forward as black sludge began to fall from its body. Tapping Naruto's shoulder, he turned to her before looking to the creature as its black skin receded to show a faunus that looked beyond malnourished. Coughing up blood that was red, Naruto ran to the faunus's side to help him. "The general Did this, the fauna said before succumbing to the injuries. With Naruto noticing the many scars that littered the poor soul's body, he clenched his fist before sighing. May your soul rest now, Naruto said with his head down. As Raven watched in shock, standing up, he turned to the others, who gave a moment of silence. Standing on the sidelines as Summer, Taiyang, Raven, and Crow stood before Merlin, who had a sympathetic gaze to the four in front of him and the crowd of students. Summer Rose, Taiyang Xiaolong, Raven Bronwyn, and finally Crow Bronwyn. You four gained the king's peace. From this day forth, you four will remain as Team Stork to strike down those of ill intent, Merlin said, with the four nodding, with Summer smiling, led by Summer Rose. Well done, young lady. Your parents would be proud, Merlin said, with Summer having a sad smile with a nod. As Naruto noticed this shift in her attitude, walking to her, he placed a hand reassuringly on her shoulder. She turned to see his smile, making her smile back with a blush, which Raven stared at with a slight narrow of her eyes before she shook it off and followed her brother, ignoring Taiyang hitting on her, as Summer followed after them to watch the four, as Naruto was joined by Jason, Lucien, and Vlad. Naruto looked forward with a smile, Jason's mask once more hooked to his right hip, and Lucien having a nervous look until Vlad patted his shoulder reassuringly. Dominic Grave, Jason Vincent Voorhees, Lucien Wolfblood, and finally Vlad Adepes Dracula. You four may not have brought back a relic, but you helped the team get their own in your place. You four showed great promises out there. From this day forth, Merlin began before Naruto held up a hand, making his current future teammates turn to him as he turned to them. I know this may be against the rules, but can we choose our own name, Headmaster? Merlin had a frown on his head before he looked at the other team members. He chuckled and nodded, getting murmurs from the many other students, with Raven and Summer giving him an odd look. By all means, Merlin said, with Naruto smiling as he turned to the three, and by the short time he's known them, he could tell one thing. They had lives just as equally hard as his own, with Jason being the quiet one with little friends growing up, Vlad and Lucien because they were faunus, and finally him, a once pariah of a village he strove to gain acknowledgement from. Smiling at the three, they smirked back. From what I can see from my friends, we've all had hardships growing up. We've all been thrown into the gutter by those of normal nature, while we were discriminated because of something we had no choice over. We were the ones fate decided didn't care about until we got back up for round 3. Society isn't good enough for us, so we'll be something society made us to be. We'll be Team Outcast, sir, Naruto said with a nod to Merlin, while Osman had a smile of interest as Kurama appeared on his shoulder. No, nodding to the four, Merlin spoke. Very well, then from this day you four will work together as Team Outcast, Merlin said as Summer clapped for them, while Raven looked into Naruto's eyes as he stared into her own, getting the feeling of weightlessness in her stomach again. She steeled herself and nodded, getting one back from Naruto. He was brought into a group hug by Lucien's surprising strength. Lucien, can't breathe, Naruto gasped loudly, with everyone laughing. Sitting within an undisclosed military base on the outreaches of Atlas, the general was looking over public reportings until a man with a slim body and bald head walked in. Showing the lab coat, the general looked up. Doctor, anything to report? Yes, General, but I fear it is not good news. The test subject ship to Vale has been neutralized by initiates now attending Beacon, the doctor said, with the general inhaling slowly before he pulled out a revolver, making the doctor blink as the general aimed at the target set up in his office. He fired 2 more times before punching his desk, doing this all with a blank face. He stood up calmly. Have more subjects been prepared for release? The general questioned, with the doctor nodding. Yes, sir. The creep and Knucklebeam test the subjects are ready for release. Looking to the files in his hands, he spoke once more. Just give the orders, sir, the doctor said as the general walked to a window that showed many faunus being caged, looking to one as a wolf faunus was crying out in agony as his skin darkened. Our kingdom was at the top of the food chain during the war, but the king of Vale saw us as weak. Send as much subjects as you want. We'll prove we're superior. I don't care if our council see this as unethical. We'll be the strong kingdom out of all of the 4. The man said as he watched the faunus muscles bulge before exploding into a mass of black blood. Damn it, that's the 5th one this week to resist the blood transfusion, the man said as he punched the window. It was this moment he noticed the doctor missing. Walking to the desk, he looked to the files before he took notice to the files he had before. Lucien Wolfblood, your father had a gift. Will you have it as well, though? Standing in front of their dorm room's name, Naruto had a frown at how quickly the school took to labeling their room's door with golden letters. Letting out a slow whistle, Jason spoke as he entered the well-furbished room. I have to say, this is a nice interior, Jason said as Vlad and Lucian followed with Naruto closing the door behind him. He looked to the four beds with matching desks. He walked to the facing facing wall opposite the door. He flopped down on the bed with a sigh. I can get used to this. Me too, Lucian murmured as he laid on his claimed bed, leaving Jason and Vlad standing as they looked to one another. I'll take the bed by the window. I got this one by the bathroom. With that exchange, the two went to setting up their things, being sure to leave some room for Naruto and Lucian to add their own flair. They turned with weapons drawn as the door was kicked open by an excited crow, who at the moment was dragging a struggling Taiyang. What's up? Hey, why are they dead? Crow slurred before Raven came in and grabbed the back of his collar and pulled him out, with Taiyang being freed, leaving Jason and Vlad in the room before Jason went to doing his setup, and Vlad shrugging and followed suit, throwing one of his dull knives. It bounced off the wall and hit the door, closing it while the knife, which was made of rubber, returned to Vlad's hand, making Jason look to the door, then back to him. Blinking with his mouth slightly agape, he closed his eyes and continued unpacking. I like throwing knives, Vlad said, with the two unpacking in silence before going into fits of laughter, with Naruto and Lucian joining. End of Chapter 8. From the Grave I Crawl by Epic Insanity 666, Chapter 9. Snoring in his current bed, Vlad let out a groan as he stretched his arms while sitting up, rubbing his eyes to rid them of sleep. He blinked with his eyes, nothing but crimson orbs in the dimly lit room. He looked to the clock. He had to see it was 6 in the morning. Standing up and walking to the window, he squinted at seeing beacon in the distance. He looked away from the rising sun. He walked to his bedside table to get his sunglasses, putting them on. His red shades glowed red due to his eyes. He went through his clothing to pick out his regular clothes. He frowned at hearing Naruto's sleep mumbles. A few words caught his attention. Tsunade, betrayed, family, ramen. Looking to his team leader, Vlad had a sad/confused frown. To the blonde, he turned back to his bag to see the only thing he had left of his family in a small picture frame. Seeing a woman and a man, he saw what could have been the same bundle wrapped in the woman's arms. The two showed a bright smile, both showing fangs instead of canines, which he proudly showed to the world. Finding a pair of black dress pants and shirt, he also picked out a vest with an inside holster for throwing knives with intricate buttons. It had an interior red design of roses surrounding equally red skulls. Walking to the bathroom of the dorm room, Vlad stopped and picked up his scroll, cycling through it for music. He closed the door behind him with a song playing, which was his all-time favorite, but highly suspect, Hello, My Name is Human. And placing the scroll down to walk into the shower, he took his glasses off along with his sleepwear before plunging himself into the hot waters, letting his nerves and body relax into the waters. His senses lulled him to a dreamy state as he drifted to the many calm heartbeats within the buildings. He hummed to the music. Hello, my name is Human, Vlad sang softly as he opened his eyes to inhale slightly. He went to cleaning himself for the day. He turned his head to the distant sound of a yelp. He frowned at the muffled sounds. He cleaned himself more thoroughly. He stepped out of the shower to place his glasses back on before drying himself with his provided towel. Placing his clothing on, he stepped out to find one set of his shoes beside his bed. He put on a pair of socks. He turned to a painting above his bed, admiring the image of a proud knight standing before king and queen. He continued dressing himself to properly investigate the odd sounds. He stepped out of his dorm rooms to see the hallway lights on. He looked to his right to see a foot quickly move out of his view. He heard running footsteps behind him. He turned in time to duck under a thrown pillow, looking at the weird weapon, looking to the one who attacked him to see her smiling widely before she looked up to get hit by a pillow, looking to who threw it. Vlad raised an eyebrow. Aha! The early bird gets the worm. Welcome to Beacon second year. Welcome presents, the girl said with an obvious accent. Yeah, thanks. Is this even allowed? Vlad questioned as he helped himself up. Of course it is. The headmaster himself thought of this to help first years get used to the school grounds, the girl said before she looked ahead and ducked under a thrown pillow. Safi, I'm talking here. Sorry, the girl said down the hallway as Vlad walked her way down the hallway where the supposed Safi was. Walking after her, he turned to the dorm of Stork. He saw the door open to show a sleepy crow step out in his clothing from yesterday, just without the rings. Looking to one another, they nodded in greetings as they followed the second year. So, what's this about? Crow questioned the faunus, who frowned. The second year's greeting for first years, Vlad said before leaning to the left to dodge a pillow thrown by the two as they entered the hall of the dormitories. Looking to the other first years that got by the test, Vlad saw the few survivors they found on the way back to Beacon that encountered the abomination. It was the fact both Team Stork and Outcast took it down that got them a good reputation for monster slayers. Walking into the hurriedly set up walk-in party, the two shared a look, while Vlad shrugging as he and Crow moved to a set of seats. With Vlad finding a drink and beverages, he helped himself, while Crow simply admired the older girls, the rare few giving him death stares, and Vlad blushes. Crow looked at him as he simply sat and drank his cup of Mountain Dew. Stopping in mid-drink, he turned to Crow, who had a jealous look as the girls were checking him out instead of Crow. What? Vlad questioned, with Crow looking away with a shake of his head. So, why do you dress up so fancy this early in the morning? Crow questioned the faunus, who looked down to himself. He shrugged. Call me fancy, I guess, Vlad said as Crow shrugged. Yeah, I guess. It's not like all bad faunus dress like high-class people. Hey, you don't see me complaining about your dressing choices, Vlad said with a smile that spread onto Crow's smirking face. Whatever, I'd probably rip the back and sleeves. You're somehow making it look good, and that's the clothes job, Crow said, with Vlad looking to his clothes to shrug in agreement. Fair enough. It's just I wear these because even though they're meant for rich people meetings, my father wore these into every fight against the Grim. I guess he saw both as a fight, Vlad said with a chuckle, making Crow join his laughter, letting out a yawn as he stretched her arms beneath her bed sheets. Raven sat up to look around her dorm room. She took notice to Crow's absence. She blinked the sleep away to also notice Summer missing and the shower running in their dorm bathroom. Looking to Taiyang, he slept in a heap with his body sprawled on his bed. She got up to retrieve her packed clothes from the bed beneath her bed. She looked to the bathroom as the shower stopped. She retrieved her normal clothing for combat. She looked to her weapons rack to see her sword and sheath resting in wait. Smiling proudly to the intricate design, she stood up with her choice clothing. She stood beside the bathroom door in wait as she heard Summer inside. She looked to the door opening. She saw Summer jump at seeing her face. The girl held her chest with a sigh as Raven smiled slightly. Morning, Raven. You too, Summer. Can you wake the idiot and wait for me before we look for my idiot brother? Raven questioned, with Summer looking to his bed as she let out a sigh of annoyance. All right, hurry up then, Summer said, with Raven nodding as she closed the door behind her. Placing her clothes and sleepwear on the large portion of the bathroom's bench, she stood with a six-pack in front of the shower. She turned the tap on and in an instant felt the hot water grazing its warmth on her skin. Stepping into the shower while adjusting the temperature, she closed her eyes and went to cleaning her precious hair with her shampoo. Closing her eyes as she ran her fingers through and down her hair, she felt a knot that made her eyes widen in alarm. Before she reached for a face cloth, before she hissed in stinging pain as she hastily washed shampoo out of her eyes. Reaching for a face cloth, she wiped her eyes hastily before she let the water do its work. She had a scowl on her face as she felt her knots in her hair. Damn it! Raven cursed as she tried to get rid of the knots in her hair. She let out a whine as she gave up. Turning off the shower and reaching for a towel, she quickly dried herself with a pout of anger. She got her clothes and dressed herself. Looking to the clock in the bathroom, she saw it was 7. Stepping out of the bathroom with an aura of annoyance, she ignored Taiyang's greeting to leave the dorm room. Walking out of the room, she bumped into Naruto, who had the unfortunate reaction of grabbing her. Leaving the two on the floor, Raven had a scowl that made Naruto throw her onto her feet with 2 chakra chains. Confusing Raven as she found herself standing again, she looked down to see Naruto with his hands raised and the chains floating beside him. Sorry, Raven. What happened to your hair? Naruto questioned as Raven's scowl returned. She left Naruto on the floor until Jason held a hand down to his partner. You were a smooth talker the other day. What happened? Jason questioned with a smile that made Naruto roll his eyes as they followed after the angry girl. Any idea where Vlad or Lucien are? Naruto questioned, with Jason shrugging before they heard Vlad's voice laughing. Walking out into the hall, they saw three girls circling Vlad, while Crow leaned on his right elbow with the cloud over his head. Well, this is probably the weirdest first day in Beacon, Naruto said as Jason nodded in agreement. Looking around, he felt his stomach churn in hunger at the sight of food. Making Naruto chuckle, the two made their way to the breakfast table. Naruto's mouth watered at the sight of pancakes. He scooped the plate off many of the table, leaving Jason, who had a frown. He looked over the many options of breakfast. He shrugged and picked up a bowl of cornflakes with a small bag of sugar. Walking to where Vlad, Lucien, and Naruto were at, he saw Raven dragging her brother to their team's table, sporting a black eye. Wincing at the sight, he turned back to Naruto and Vlad. Lucien was scarfing down a leg of lamb with seasonings. So, how was everyone's waking up? Vlad questioned with a smile that showed his canines, making Naruto frown as he looked to an angry Raven. He saw Summer sitting on her forearms as Taeyang fell victim to Raven's rants, which was probably more focused on her hair by the amount of care she was giving it at the moment. Looking away from the scene of Team Stork, Naruto spoke. So, what's the plan today? Do we have classes or something? Naruto, classes start tomorrow. Today we're given a day to get used to the school grounds, Vlad said, with Naruto nodding. Looking to Raven, he saw the many knots tangled in it. He frowned in thought before he returned to mingling with his teammates. It was after an hour after the second years left the classes that Naruto and his team were playing a makeshift cards. Naruto and Vlad took notice to Summer hiding behind the table while her head leaned on the edge, making everyone on the team stop and look at her. Summer, shh, I'm not here. Just help me get away from an angry Raven and her hair, Summer said in a whispering voice that made Naruto turn to see a raving Raven with Taeyang and Crow the victims. Making Naruto sigh, he stood up and walked to the raging beauty. Summoning his chakra chains, he willed them to wrap around Raven and dragged her as he left the hall, leaving a stunned Summer, Crow, and Taeyang as they could hear her roars of protest outside the hallway, making nearly all the first-year students salute his bravery. Or was it stupidity? Let go of me, you blonde idiot, Raven yelled as she was dragged through the hallways. She failed to see the two stop in front of her team's storeroom, feeling her pockets being looked through. She struggled more until Naruto held her scroll, holding it for the door scanner to open the door. He dragged her in. Dominic Grave, what are you doing? Raven questioned with a strained voice of calm, making Naruto look around. He turned to her with a blank face. Which bag has your cleaning products? The question made Raven blink in confusion. At the question, she obliged by nodding to her bed below it. Now explain to me why you dragged me here, Raven said as Naruto knelt down to get a bag. He looked through the bag labeled hair. Taking a brush out, Raven's eyes widened as he stepped towards her, making her struggle. He stopped. You do realize I can help you with your hair, right? Naruto questioned with Raven glaring at him. Don't even think about it, Raven growled out with Naruto raising an eyebrow. You either accept my help or I do it anyway, Naruto said with the two staring each other down before Raven huffed as the chains carefully lifted her up and set her down in the bathroom, with Naruto following her after with his brush. If I find one strand of my hair on the ground, these chains will not help you, Raven said as Naruto rolled his eyes as he began to hopefully unknot the hair with extreme care as Raven watched him in the mirror. Walking around the school grounds with the remaining members of Team Stork, Team Outcast had just gotten around their third walk around the school's campus. It was when Lucien spoke to Crow that the group stopped. So, what was with Raven this morning? Something about her hair? Lucien questioned with Crow chuckling slightly. Yeah, she's obsessed with her hair, Crow said, with Jason rubbing his bald head with a sigh of bliss in a joking manner, making Vlad chuckle as he ran a hand through his hair between his eyes. The benefits of being bald and still looking good, Jason said, with the group laughing. So about her hair, Lucien questioned with Crow having a saddened look that made the group stop. When we were born into our tribe in the wilds, Raven took after our mother the most. She had the exact facial structure and the same hair. But that's where the similarity stopped due to us taking after our father's hair and eye color. Our mother took care of us the best she could in our tribe, but it had a few specific rules to follow, and our father was a cruel man afterwards, Crow said as he walked onwards, leaving the group behind. Damn, I guess not all of us started off on good terms, Taeyang said with Lucien humming in agreement. This was ruined, however, by Jason speaking. So, how long do you think it'll take for Naruto to hitch Raven? Jason questioned, with Lucien and Vlad speaking. Next year, Vlad said, with Lucien chuckling. The year after that one, Lucien said with a smirk, making Summer blush at the thought before she looked to Taiyang, sighing. Tai, you alright? Looking to his team leader, Taiyang smiled in response. Yeah, I'm alright. Just thinking. Taiyang said with a truthful smile that Summer returned before they stopped and blinked as they saw Kurama in his small fox form running to them. Walking up to Jason, he, with surprising strength, leaped onto his head with ease, climbing onto his shoulders. Jason raised an eyebrow as Kurama sat down. Naruto's fixing Raven's hair. Fools being too kind, I'd say, Kurama said with Crow chuckling. He's on doomed ground right now, Crow said before he was wrapped in chakra chains covering his mouth. He turned to where they came from to see a healthy Naruto walking to them with a beaming Raven as she ran her hand through her hair. Ghost! Crow yelled as he tried to hop away from Naruto, with the blonde giving him a deadpan look, while Raven had a look of annoyance. Really, Crow? Raven questioned, with Vlad holding his mouth to keep himself from laughing as Naruto chased after Crow. So, who feels like going to Vale? Jason questioned, with Raven and Lucien shrugging, while Vlad and Summer nodded, leaving Taiyang to watch Naruto chase after Crow, who barely avoided being caught by the chakra chains. An hour later, the Vale air, Taiyang said with a smile. We're at the docks, Tai, Crow said with a tired sigh, making Summer sigh as the two teams were searching for a place to have their early lunch, with Lucien sniffing out the good food joints, with Vlad also helping. It was when they walked by a notice board in the city square that the team stopped and actually took notice to the missing person flyers. Damn, so many people missing, Crow said as they looked up to the board full of missing peoples. It was the lone fact that all those missings were Faunus. End of chapter 9.